So I'm going to kick off. I mean, so for me, this slide actually says it all. What is it for, not just for Vodafone, but for me? Last year, towards the end of last year, one of my guys in my team was on holiday in Germany with his parents, and he was in a hire car, and with his father in the car, and unfortunately he was pushed off the road and crashed into a tree. Now, what actually happened really sort of struck home and made me sort of think twice, because what happened, this car was actually equipped with emergency calling service, equipped with one of our Vodafone SIMs that was used to provide a sort of messaging system in the event of serious accidents. And what happened was he crashed into a tree at speed. Within a few milliseconds, the car had collected all the data around the accident in terms of exactly where it was, in terms of the GPS location, the speed of the car, the rate of deceleration, to give an idea of the seriousness of the accident. And in less than a second, that information was captured, and within 2 seconds, that information had been relayed to a call center managed by the manufacturer of the car. And then within 10 seconds, emergency services were dispatched to attend my colleague. Now, it ended well. He's okay. He had some whiplash. His father had some whiplash. But, you know, this was a time-critical issue. And the fact that this emergency calling service was in place and was operational and worked, it probably didn't have an impact on saving my colleague's life, but over the number of accidents that occur, I'm absolutely certain that this service is saving lives. Absolutely certain of it. You know, every minute counts in terms of attending these sorts of events, and so for me, this is kind of the big story, is that IoT can save lives. It's not just lives. In other areas of industry and use, it results in cleaner, more efficient use of appliances in terms of energy and carbon footprint generation. It improves the quality of lives. It improves the logistics for supply and distribution organizations. So it's got many benefits to the organizations using it. But I mean, the key issue, though, that comes up all the time is security, because once we become invested and dependent upon this technology, the last thing you want to happen is for you to have an outage or a problem in terms of the use of the service. So yes, sorry. So when we look at security, when you say IoT or you're in IoT, usually the second word that comes up is security. And I think the reason for this is people's experience. And really, there are two types of IoT that we see in practice these days. One is the enterprise IoT, which is used by corporates and enterprise organizations, farming groups, agricultural suppliers, medical providers, et cetera. And these services can be business and life critical. They've got a long lifespan. The organizations creating these services adopt a defense in depth development approaches, and they put a lot of effort in making sure that these services are secure and safe. Operational systems are mature, well rehearsed, and staffed by competent people. And you've got regulatory oversight. We've got lots of legislation that's come in, the NIS directive, GDPR privacy, and in June the 30th this year, we had the ETSI standard that was published, which describes a set of guidelines or golden rules that for people to apply to. So, but it's the regulatory oversight means that within telecoms, Ofcom in the UK and equivalent regulators in all other countries have visibility of what you're doing, and they've got the ability. They've got teeth. They can enforce strict rules and conformance. So it's managed. It's managed and overseen by government bodies that are formally set up to do just this. There are also commercial and contractual pressures on suppliers. You know, it's basically it is a commercial issue in that having a good track record regarding security impacts your ability to sell services. So there's lots of pressures, there's lots of reasons why people invest a lot of money and effort into ensuring that the IoT solutions that you see are actually engineered correctly and securely. So the result of all this diligence is it has a cost, and that is seen in the price points. On the other hand, we've got the high street. We've got the people buying IoT appliances on eBay from God knows where, and these are sold principally on price and feature. Often very little attention goes into security. They're mass market, low value, high volume, short lifespan, and wide exposure. The doll you see in the image here is quite famous. It was a toy that was sold as an IoT toy that was sold for children in Germany. And the instructions from the German law enforcement agencies to the consumers at the time was to burn it. It wasn't returned to the supplier or throw it away, it was to physically burn it, because it was considered to be so insecure and potentially so dangerous if used by children. So we've got these two different views, these two different stories regarding IoT solutions. On the one hand, we've got the enterprise, which is governed well, diligent, managed well, secure, defense in depth, SPDA, etc. And on the other hand, we've got the often dangerous products that are sold into the consumer market, and you know, the consumers really don't care. It's really just about price and feature. The next slide is an eBay customer review for an IoT product that one of my guys in my team was looking at buying. It's a $25 webcam. Looks like a real bargain. The features on this camera were absolutely phenomenal. And the features on this camera are absolutely phenomenal for the price of $25. And you can see here, in terms of the ratings by customers, it's kind of a bimodal distribution pattern here. You've got 60% of people are saying this is fantastic, it's a 5-star product based upon the features. But then you've got this little group at the bottom of 1 stars, 14%. And if you look at the comments are all around, this is a Chinese camera that is, you know, when you use it, makes connections to unknown servers in China and sends information of unknown information into some servers in China. It's a security camera. So, you know, this is, you know, the 60% of people don't care, and there's only a smaller number of people who do. So this is kind of the two views of IoT. So, I mean, the key message that I keep on saying is that really IoT is an enabler that potentially links our digital economy to the physical world. It's critical to the economies of our countries and of our organizations. And regulations and standards should make it as easy as possible for enterprise suppliers to provide solutions to that benefit the consumers of those services. So it's all about customer centricity, as far as I'm concerned, in terms of creating services which are appropriate for the market. And this is what's the most recent standard that has been published, which is the ETSI EN 303645 standard, which what it does is it describes 13, not rules, but 13 sort of rules that you should be complying with in order to develop a secure IoT solution. Now, this is quite interesting. How much teeth does this have? Well, ETSI, this standard in itself is not mandatory. You're not required to abide by it. However, it's likely that other organizations will use this standard as a metric to measure the competence with which your solutions are developed. So if, for instance, you have a GDPR breach through a hack, the regulator is likely to ask you, did you follow these 13 rules? Now, if you did, if you could demonstrate your organization was diligent in terms of applying these rules, then it's likely that any penalty that the regulator would apply would be very much reduced. If, on the other hand, it was demonstrated that you didn't apply these particular rules, it's likely that you'll be taken to cleaners and you'll get the maximum fine that can be exercised. So although this standard is not a mandatory standard, it is certain that it will be used by other regulations and by other groups as the sort of metric, the benchmark to see whether you've done the right thing and performed the right activities for your product. So don't be, just because it's not the law, just because it's not mandatory, doesn't mean to say you don't have to follow it. It would be very wise to actually make sure that any IoT services you develop and deliver support these requirements. Now, looking at the anatomy of the services we provide, this is kind of the way that I see it. So we've got three components to an IoT service, an IoT enterprise service. You've got the IoT devices themselves, represented by the box on the left. Then you've got the application platforms that these devices connect to on the right, which is provided by the enterprise organization using the IoT service. In the case of the example I gave at the beginning, we've got the IoT device in the car communicating with the back-end emergency calling systems provided by the car manufacturer. But the bit in the middle is the glue that the telecoms provider, the connectivity player provides. Now, if you look at the anatomy of threats, then what you've got is different threats affecting different parts of this this picture. So in the brown at the top, we've got the sort of attacks that attack against devices. In the green, we've got the server attacks, and at the bottom, we've got the attacks that a connectivity service is likely to be affected by. Now, the GSMA approach is taken as being to actually split the security activities across these three dimensions, and they've created a set of guidelines and assessment practices which allow you to focus very much on the specific areas of your IoT service. And this is the approach that I like to follow and use when I'm doing sort of security assessments, and in terms of splitting up the work and understanding which parts of the system require different sort of security acceptance processes to be in place. But the one that I'm most interested in is the one at the bottom, is the IoT connectivity part, because that's the service that my company provides. It's a connectivity service that is managed. Now, the beauty of the connectivity services provided by a telco provider is that the telco connectivity itself has got inherent security benefits and protections in place. I'll just walk you through this slide. You see you've got the IoT devices connecting through to the customer's application platform. As far as the developer of the IoT device is concerned, he's got a logical TCP/IP connection from his device straight through to the application platform. It behaves like IP on the internet, and it's using the same protocols. You can do all the same things, but it's going across the telecoms connectivity pathway. And the actual physical implementation of that is a little bit more complex, in that you go over it uses the SIM in the device to establish an authenticated connection to the RAN network. That RAN network then goes through a series of core elements, GDSNs, and different interfaces in order to connect through to the telco's private infrastructure. And then there's a dedicated APN that is connected from the telco private infrastructure to the customer's application platform. Now, within that sort of red arrow, it's possible for the telco player to set some rules and set some policies. And the rules that we follow and strictly follow within the service we provide is we don't allow customers' devices to connect to customer devices. It's a golden rule. So if you have two IoT appliances side by side, if they do want to communicate to each other, they have to communicate via the central platform. Now, the reason for that is because we kind of assume that customers' IoT devices are likely to be attacked. They're in the market. They might be selling at a particular price point. People can gain access to them, good people and bad people, and it's possible for these devices to be compromised. When they are compromised, what we do not allow is for a compromised device to talk to another compromised device. It is just not, it's not in the flow. It's just not allowed. The connectivity does not support that sort of approach. Similarly, we don't allow the devices to connect to the public internet unless it's required by the customer application platform. And it's a customer decision. And similarly, there is no internet to device comms. It runs like a closed intranet, in fact. So this isolation, this network isolation, gives you a huge amount of security benefit in that it's using the network controls to minimize the exposure of the devices to the outside world. And this is a very, very effective control. And on top of that, we've got the ability to monitor and manage this flow. So for instance, if a device starts generating an anomalous amount of traffic, the customers can set up an alert and they get an alert, this device is behaving a little strangely. And then we've got the secondary capability of throttling back the traffic the traffic volumes it uses, or disabling the device itself. So we've got full visibility of what's going on. We've got the ability to control what connects to what. We've got sort of historical data patterns in terms of what is normal and what is not normal. So it allows us to exercise a huge amount of control over the way our networks work. Huge amount. It's that you simply cannot do this sort of close management of connectivity with a public connected devices. So we've got what we've also got, and is what's being developed at the moment, is along the lines of using the SIM-based trust mechanism, which is the mechanism used by telcos in all telephony appliances, to add additional value in terms of using the telco trust model, which is based upon a SIM card, which is essentially just a Java. It's just a Java card, which has got security functions built in it to generate and derive trust relationships. Using that as the mechanism to enable the developer to create trust between the device and their application platform. So by exposing these trust mechanisms to the higher levels of the stack in terms of the device and the application service, we can then leverage the trust models that we have with SIMs to allow the users to create APIs that will allow them to do things like authentication, integrity protection, encrypting patches and config data, to derive keys, application keys for other purposes, whatever they might be. So it's leveraging the network itself as a mechanism within the telco environment to generate these security functions, which is really the big opportunity that we have at the moment. The GSMA is working on a number of programs. One of the programs is called SAF, which is a secure application function, which is defining new standards in terms of the way that SIM chips are used and exposed for these sorts of purposes. There are existing protocols that we use. GBA is the generic baseline application function, which allows you to derive keys. And there's a new standard which is in evolution, which is called BEST, which is designed for power efficiency and to minimize the power requirements when you do key derivation. So key message here is to for telco providers to provide trust services that make it easy and possible for enterprise customers and service developers to create and provide secure IoT services. And I think I've come to the end of my presentation there, Annie. I've got some backup slides talking about 5G if you need me to talk further. So I'll stop. So Annie, I can see you speaking, but I can't hear you.
I have unmuted. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great. think there's a bit of a time like that. So can we come on to 5G in a moment, please? I was going to ask you, but first we have a question from one of our attendees, Marcello, who says, nice presentation, Tim, and asks, what do you make of blockchain, for example, to add security? Did I hear a groan in the background?
Oh, no, it's a laugh. So blockchain is oversold and overhyped. Effectively, what it does is create a trust mechanism that you can use when people or groups of organizations are trying to interact and where there is a lack of trust or where there's a requirement for trust. So it provides you with it's a specific type of trust service that is for when you've got situations where people don't trust each other. So the example I use is you've got a Volvo car driving along and it needs to communicate with a BMW car. They're both using different IoT services. How do you set it up such that the Volvo car can communicate to the BMW car in a trustful fashion? And the answer to that is you can use blockchain. Unfortunately, blockchain is hyped so much as a solution for everything, and 99% of the applications I see for blockchain are actually bogus. They can be better served using conventional trust mechanisms. So, but there is a 1% there of use cases for blockchain that is solid gold. And as I said, it's when you're dealing with situations where you're interacting between organizations that aren't able to trust each other, such as different manufacturers.
So maybe, is it about trust or a lack of interoperability between different ecosystems?
Well, that's the thing. The thing is, if you have interoperability and you can create trust using conventional certificate-based mechanisms, you don't need blockchain. That's the point. But where you have organizations which inherently are unable to do that for whatever reason, they may be commercially discrete different organizations and they may not have those relationships. But if you extend that analogy, rather than car for car, you go from car to petrol pump or car to a booth where you're paying access to a motorway, where you've got all these different appliances all trying to interact, where the different vendors don't know each other and certainly don't trust each other. Blockchain creates a mechanism that you can use to create trust in a sort of consortium sort of way, where people can join the consortium and they can the trust relationship can be evolved and support those sorts of applications. So the conventional application for blockchain is financial, transacting money, where you have this sort of centralized ledger. But as I said, in terms of IoT, it's the application is where you're trying to interact between organizations that don't necessarily or are not able to necessarily to have trust between themselves. So I see the reason I laughed was because I see so many people coming to me with applications that can be supported using conventional mechanisms, and blockchain. It's really a technology that people are trying to find applications for, it can be adapted to pretty much anything. But the real use for blockchain is where you've got you're having to manage connectivity between organizations that don't necessarily trust each other.
So could we just move on a little bit, please, Tim, to 5G, because the message that you've given through your presentation that's been loud and clear is about security for IoT from your point of view, from Vodafone's point of view, is all about using the inherent mechanisms and checks that are in the telco network. How does this change with 5G? I mean, there are arguments that 5G is both more and less secure.
Well, the 5G, it's a more refined protocol that's been developed and is evolving still. Essentially, what it gives you is more bandwidth. It's got a greater amount of spectrum assigned to it. So you've got a whole set of different bands that can be combined together and split up and shared across. But at the same time, it's been evolved to support some quite neat functions, specifically sort of MEC, edge computing. And again, going back to cars and vehicle-to-vehicle communications, if you're driving behind a BMW or a Skoda and it brakes, and you want that car to communicate to your car that it's braking, then the latency that you need a ping time of less than sort of 5 milliseconds. So in order to get those very, very low latencies, what 5G creates is an opportunity to have sort of edge computing where you don't have to communicate all the way back to a central server, but you can communicate via directly car to car or indirectly via appliances which are local. Now, this creates a security concern because those local connections no longer going through the central organization, so you don't have the overall control of what goes on. So if somebody was able to hack a traffic light, they could cause accidents. So there's a huge amount of effort that's gone into creating protocols that allow security relationships to be set up between cars and road appliances and cars to cars and to support this sort of activity. So this is sort of I think the big area is cars. I mean, there's billions of cars on the planet, and the potential that 5G has to allow in autonomous driving and making better use of the road infrastructure, it really does pay for itself. I mean, if you can reduce make more efficient use of the M25 going around London, say increase the efficiency by 5 or 10% by making cars more intelligent about the routes that they follow, then the cost saving nationally in terms of a 5-10% reduction in road utilization, it has enormous value measured in billions. And if you can make it, there was the digital stretch of motorway in the Midlands, which was a chaotic failure. Where again, they were trying to be more efficient by using technology. The failing that they made was they didn't allow for problems and people had breaking down on the side of the road. So the lesson learned there was, humans still fail, cars still fail. Don't assume that just because they're automated that everything is going to work perfectly all the time. But nevertheless, it does result in a much more efficient use of resources, and that saves money, it saves time, it saves energy, it saves lots of things. So
sorry, I was just going to say, we've got one question, please.
Yep.
Another question from Daniel, who's one of our attendees. Thank you. And he's, I think, talking about the previous question before we got onto 5G. He asks, isn't there supposed to be a template for communications that all organisations should obey to enhance trust between each other, between these entities? I'm not sure exactly what he's thinking of there, but
well, there are sort of industry standards, so certificate based, and we've all used certificates in our IT systems, and I mean, there's a cost, and the greater certificate you have and the way you manage it is up to the organization. But using asymmetric crypto, what cryptography gives you is a mechanism to create those trust relationships. And the key to any cryptographic technology is not so much the crypto. The key is actually the key distribution, how you manage distribution of keys. So that is the problem that I see is a key distribution problem. Once you have a key, then you can use that to encrypt to whatever level of security you like. But it's the key distribution is the issue. And again, what we have with telco is our key distribution models which are tried and trusted and used by the mobile, your mobile telephone. It uses key distribution and key derivation technologies, which are used to protect your phone conversations, but also they're used to protect the telco's revenue streams, because this is how telcos make money. They sell connectivity on telephone devices, and that model is you can leverage that in your IoT solution as well. So is it military grade security? No, but it's telco grade, and it's good enough grade for what we would do in a sort of normal day-to-day life. And it's a model that's been around for 20 years or more. It's tried and trusted. It's been investigated to death. Everybody knows what the limitations are of it. So, you know, the trust model that we have in telephones is very, very well understood. And as I said, at the end of the day, it boils down to how you distribute keys. And what we're trying to do in IoT is leverage that key distribution capability as part of the IoT service in order to provide trust mechanisms that our customers can use when they develop their applications. So that's as I see it.
Tim, thank you very much. Really interesting. A lot of very helpful information. Thank you so much.
Annie. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.